What's up, everybody? It's your girl Nadine, and I'm back with episode number 4. 4 is one of my favorite numbers. Anyway, welcome back to Award Tour. Just coming off the Super Bowl. I hope you guys enjoyed all those awesome Super Bowl ads. Shout out to WPP and all their agencies that were involved. They had some of the top 4 spots in the Super Bowl, including Verizon with Beyonce and the CeraVe spot as well. There was just all kinds of dope commercials. What are your favorites? Make sure you put it into the comment section. And also, if you're loving what you've been seeing so far, episode number 4, subscribe, do me a favor. Show me some love, because I'm showing you love. And today's guest is so just off the charts. I can't wait for you guys to meet him. He is got a quite unique background. So I'm just going to bring him in and introduce y'all to him. And I want to welcome to this show, Vincent Bragg. He is CEO and co-founder of CONCREATES. Welcome to the show, Vincent. Welcome to Award Tour. Yes.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Definitely. I mean, I'm really such a good fan of yours. Actually, I'm just gonna be honest. I'm not gonna give away things. I want you to tell your story to the people. But you are the CEO and co-founder of CONCREATES. So, what is CONCREATES?
So, CONCREATES is an advertising agency powered by incarcerated and formerly incarcerated men and women across the United States. I guess my story kind of begins in a federal prison, right? So, at one point in my life, I sold drugs for a living. And apparently the United States of America frowns upon such behavior and put me on what I like to call an adult timeout. So I go to federal prison where I was able to just kind of re-educate myself, if you will, right? I was able to study all sorts of things, like develop self-growth and, really just kind of plan for my life. And, during that time I was incarcerated, I was able to kind of, pair up with the founder of a company called MeUndies. We were able to give him some ideas, helped him sell a bunch of pairs of underwear. And it kind of just was like that aha moment where, oh, we could do this for other brands. And so, that kind of started the journey of how do we start looking at each other differently with this new particular opportunity that maybe we didn't think of before in our former lives.
Yeah. First of all, let's pause because that was a lot to take in. Your advertising agency that is run by formerly incarcerated people.
Yes.
And a legit advertising agency.
I mean, yeah. I mean, we kind of work with some of the biggest brands on the planet. We've worked with, we like to call them the artists formerly known as Facebook, Meta. We've worked with Google. We've worked with, companies like Adidas, Trojan, United Airlines, like you name it.
To read history is one thing. To know history is duty. But to live and speak with history is just the ultimate honor that I could have.
Now that we have Juneteenth as a national holiday, people are beginning to learn about it that never even heard of a Juneteenth. You see, when I was growing up, only airplane I saw was the one overhead. But the young people, they have the opportunity to actually fly the planes. I'm delighted with the progress they've made. I tell every child that's on this United Airlines flight, people can be taught to hate, they can be taught to love. And there are ways for your dreams to come true.
Well, let's back up a little bit, just a slight bit now. Okay. You yourself are formerly incarcerated, right? How much time did you do?
So I was sentenced to 121 months, which is 10 years, 1 month in federal prison. And so when it comes to how much time I did, I was able to win like one of the things that was like the probably the hardest thing to win. But so I did 5 years, 1 month, 22 days.
Okay. That's still a hot minute. How we're,
It's like
interested in,
college.
like, it's like college.
Yeah, just think I went to university,
You did in a way, because
school of
if
hard knocks.
the time and you were able to get out in 5 years, where are you from exactly?
I'm from a place called Watts. I'm from Los Angeles, California. So
Oh, wow. Tell me a little bit about growing up there and this basically like how did you end up doing this time and being incarcerated?
you know, I think like coming from where we come from, it's like you really don't have too many options, right? It's like you're either gonna play ball, right? You're either gonna rap or sing or do something in the music industry, or you're probably gonna sell drugs. Or I mean, there's also the gang thing, right? There's those things, and I never was one of those type of guys, right? I never really wanted to join a gang. I never was one of those dude. I'm 5'8". Like there's no way I'm playing basketball, right? So I'm not gonna make it to the league. I can't sing or I barely got a little bit of rhythm, so I kind of chose the latter.
Mm-hmm.
To selling drugs as a way to kind of get out of poverty and change the trajectory of my life. So kind of doing that. There's not too many options either from there, right? It's either jail or death. And
Right.
so thank God I was able to go to prison and you know change my life and my perspective, and those around me, I was able to change their lives and perspectives, and here we are.
Wow. So you're doing time and you meet the I guess the creator of Me Undies. What happens there?
So this, I have to attribute this to my co-founder, because this really wasn't my doing, right? But so we meet, we get to the same prison on the same day. We just kind of took him under our wing, right? It was just a good kid, you could tell he really wasn't supposed to be there. So we just kind of hung out. But my co-founder, Joe Nixon, ended up kind of witnessing this thing take place on the news, right? It was just like this headline, this star running back from the Dallas Cowboys had been accused of stealing underwear, right? And, obviously we kind of dig into it like, wait a minute, like, what is like a second round draft pick, like shoplifting for, right? So, the idea that Joe kind of had was like, hey, you know what? We should like pair him up with Me Undies, have him give away some underwear at a couple charity events, pay the fine to the NFL, that sort of thing. And it literally went like viral at the time. And so that kind of was like, oh shit, you know what I mean? Like, what did we just do? And so that kind of sparked this idea, wait a minute, like we could really be creative. And so instead of like thinking about it like, oh, this might have been a fluke, right? Like we had another, kind of success where this other, guy from the Seattle Seahawks at the time kept getting fined by the NFL for grabbing at his crotch every time he scored a touchdown. And so we thought, the same thing, like, oh, let's pair him up with Me Undies, do that sort of thing. And he just happened to go to the Super Bowl that year. And when they asked him why he didn't grab at his crotch, he said, I wear the most comfortable underwear in the world, Me Undies. And
Viral moment.
it went to the moon. And that was kind of like, wait a minute, like we could do this for other brands.
Right. I mean, but you were still incarcerated when this was happening.
Oh yeah, we was definitely behind bars.
I'm saying, like, at this time though, like, how much time had already passed and you were already in there? How long were you already in?
I want to say this is 2014,
Mm-hmm.
when 2013, 2014, when all of this stuff was happening. So, I'd say I'm getting closer to the end. I came home in 2016. So
Wow, that's incredible. So you had this aha moment, and then what happens?
so now I have to study, right? Like I have to understand, what did I just see? What did I just witness? Like, what is the process? How do we, come into this game? And so March 1st of 2016, I was released from federal prison, and I joined this entrepreneurship program called Defy Ventures, where I learned like the fundamentals of starting a business, kind of like the legal jargon, like the technical things. And I ended up pitching. They had it was kind of like a Shark Tank for, formerly incarcerated entrepreneurs. And I was killing it, right? Like with this idea of an advertising agency, killing it. And one of my mentors introduced me to a man named Tim Jones over at 72 in Sunny, New York at the time. And, they just believed in it, right? Like he kind of just understood it and understood the necessity for this diverse kind of perspective, or this unique, kind of demographic that people, kind of left out.
Right. They don't count you in for anything.
Right. And so yeah, we teamed up with 72 and Sunny, and they really just got behind us. They launched us into the media, and that went viral, right? It was something that went global, right? To the point where, we've had 9 governments reach out to us wanting CONCREATES as like a reentry program in their prison system, which I think we laugh at, because like 3 of those countries won't even allow us into their country because of our criminal history. But it went crazy, right? It went crazy. Some of our, biggest clients have come from that launch moment.
When I first, heard about CONCREATES and what it was all about, I was definitely blown away, because I'm trying to understand how you were able to flip the narrative of someone being incarcerated, someone with a record, because it was unheard of to me. So that's what fascinated me the most. Like, how were you able to convince folks that you could actually do this job? Because it's hard to get into the creative department. Yeah,
no question.
And all this crazy stuff, and how did that happen?
Well, I think it's just storyteller, right? Like when you think about transferable skill sets, right? This is like when people are, filling out a resume and they want to, how do you say I was a janitor, right? And so that's when they start coming up with these things like I was a sanitation technician,
right?
But these are all transferable skill sets. And so
facilities engineer.
You feel what I'm saying? And so when you start to think about what does that look like from a standpoint of like, what did I do, right? Like I start with the crime, right? I want to figure out, what did you do in order to land yourself in here, right? And so I mention all the time, like, my co-founder, Joe, he went to prison for successfully robbing 27 banks. And I stopped looking at him as a bank robber. I started looking at him as a strategist, right? He's super charismatic, because now you got to convince all of these people that we're going to rob these banks and get away successful. Like there's all of these transferable skill sets. And I think the opportunity to kind of see a better path just didn't exist for certain people. You only know what you know, right? And, for people that come from where I've come from, like, I mean, right? Like we don't know about advertising. We didn't even know that this was a lane. I still, after all of the success that I've had in this industry, have to explain to my family what I do at the cookout.
Right?
At Thanksgiving. So when I say like Meta's a client of ours, like my grandma, like, so Mark Zuckerberg giving you money.
You're like, yes, grandma.
Right. You know what I'm saying? Like she doesn't really understand what it is I do. And so in our culture, we don't think about the actual behind the scenes that go into a 30-second spot, right? You think about the people that are on the screen, you think about the brand that spot is for, but you never think that they are hiring outside eyes to help them to cut through all of the noise of everybody else that's in their space trying to do what they doing.
Exactly. Like they want that like diverse thinking. They want that out of the box idea that
Right.
it may not happen within like that structure that they set up of how you could get in. Sometimes it just starts to get stale. So,
Right.
but I'm still kind of stuck on like how you flip the narrative because there must have been some barriers because you've been incarcerated and I know how people feel about you. They dismiss you right away. There's a lot of rights that are taken from you and a lot of fights that you have to, deal with. So what are some of the barriers that you had to deal with?
Well, I mean, obviously my barriers aren't necessarily the same as everybody I represent, but from a agency perspective or a brand perspective, there's a lot of things like that we face in the industry, which is like some of the things that we changed, right? Which is like background checks, right? In order to, kind of get onboarded with some of these big brands, a background check is warranted. And so in my opinion, that's counterproductive, right? Like you kind of know we're not going to pass a background check, right?
Right.
Like we're not, it's we're not going to do it. Like everybody has been
It's
incarcerated,
incarcerated, right?
right? And so obviously that's one of the barriers. And then you just have like the regular barriers, which are like housing. Some people don't want formerly incarcerated people in their neighborhoods, right? You have employment, right? I think that's why a lot of folks who have been incarcerated, turn to entrepreneurship because of the barriers that we face, due to criminal history. And so, in this industry, I think as an organization, I think, our biggest barrier is convincing people that certain types of crimes don't exist within our organization, like the scary type. You know what I mean? When you think about, um, just like, I don't even know how to say it without, getting canceled or whatever. But there's certain like doing something to a woman or doing something, to a child. Uh,
Right.
us in prison culture is like a no, right? Like that's like the worst thing that you can be in prison outside of like a snitch, right? Like those are like the worst things that you could be um in prison. And so, I think those are kind of like the number one fears when you're dealing with brands or folks that control budgets, right? It's like, what type of people are in your organization or in your agency network. And so that's like the hugest barrier.
So how have you do you feel like since you started, which is such a short period of time,
Yeah,
a lot of brands like outside of Meta, there's like that great Juneteenth spot for United Airlines.
sure.
You there's also if you guys watched the original G with Tracy Morgan and you guys know what that was based on. He was formerly incarcerated, came out and started his own business and things, but had to face so many barriers. You guys also did a nice documentary spin-off off of that. Let's talk about some of that work.
Yeah, I think again, right? Like one of the things that I think that makes us so successful is like, and I don't want to get typecasted either, right? Like I always feel like when it comes to like something black or something that has to do with the justice system, we're like the go-to. It's like it's a no-brainer. Like let's go get CONCREATES, right? So the way that the last OG kind of came about was during the pandemic. Clubhouse was a thing, right? It was like a very new thing, like
Right.
a way for kind of all of us to kind of stay connected because we were kind of all in jail, right? We all kind of went to jail because of the pandemic. We're all locked in the house. And so I ended up meeting someone. I was, obviously in this room and I'm talking about CONCREATES and the story. And someone in the room happened to be the marketing director for TBS and TNT and whatnot. And so it was so cryptic, right? It was like I get this DM on X or Twitter at the time, saying, "Hey, like I have something for you. Just let me get my ducks in a row, but just know like I want to work with you." So it was super cryptic. Didn't really know what the scenario was until maybe a month later I get another DM that says, hey, you know the show, The Last OG with Tracy Morgan. I am the marketing director at TBS, and we just got greenlit for season 4. We would like to partner with y'all and do the marketing. And so I'm like, all right, cool. So then we have to go through the onboarding process, all of those things. And that's kind of how it came to be, was literally just being on Clubhouse, talking to folks about CONCREATES and what we're trying to build, because we had just launched, right? We had just launched, maybe, I think the pandemic really hit in March of 2020.
Yeah.
We had just launched in July of 2019. So all of that momentum that we were gaining, it started to dwindle down because nobody really wanted to take a chance on this new agency that, was essentially controversial at the time, because we had to be extra sensitive during the pandemic and during the murder of George Floyd and, that kind of whole movement. So, a lot of those opportunities that we kind of created based on our launch started to dwindle down. And so this was like right on time.
It just seems like everything is like falling piece by piece. So like, it's like connecting, like some type of synchronicity is happening,
I say to people all the time, I don't know how I Forrest Gump my way.
I mean, when you were incarcerated, did you ever think like this moment would be happening? Like, did it come to you at all?
Well, yeah, like I didn't know it would be like this, right? I didn't know it would be this hard. I didn't know it would be this fun. I didn't have an idea, but like I knew that what we stumbled upon, like that lightning in a bottle, was something magnificent. I knew that it was something great. But I didn't know the magnitude or the level of impact that we would have, not only on the population of men and women that we serve, but just even on the industry as a whole.
Yeah, it was definitely, since we're still in February, it's really a Black History moment in advertising, because I'm still baffled that you were even able to convince anyone to give you a shot. It's so frowned upon, just even like what you went to jail for, and then your co-founder as well. It's like y'all are individual movies almost, like congratulations also, to just achieve such a feat. It had to take some great vision and faith in what your life is really meant to be. How do you feel like the industry has embraced you? Do you feel like they really has opened their arms, or do you still face a lot of barriers?
I think, people just have bias, right? Like regardless, whether it's around race, whether it's around criminal background, whatever those biases are, you know what I mean? But, obviously, we've managed to kind of rock with the people who rock with us. But yeah, I believe there's still groups of individuals who have their biases and whatnot. And, I mean, we're here to stay, right? We're not just some flavor of the moment type agency, because we really do the work, right? Like some of our most proud work that we've ever done, like never won an award. It never was publicized, right? It's like some of our stuff, we just worked with Google on training over 100,000 men and women on tech skills in order to receive employment, right? And so that's not publicized, but we got it done. You know what I'm saying? We were scheduled to do it in 2 years. We did it in like 14 months.
Let's talk a little bit more about the advocacy and the activism that you continue to do.
Yeah, I mean, again, like my biggest thing is like creativity without opportunity is what leads to criminality. That's like the founding belief system of CONCREATES, right? Let me just repeat that for the audience. Creativity without opportunity is what leads to criminality. If I knew I could have sold ideas for a living, I probably would have never sold drugs, right? And so being able to provide an opportunity for individuals who might have thought that their options were limited or their opportunities were limited based on what they could do, this changes the game, right? It changes the game not just for for people who look like me or come from where I come from, but also individuals who didn't even have an insight into this industry or a pathway to the industry, and that's the advocacy work, right? Like making sure that individuals are also seen for the creative potential that they have versus their criminal history.
Yeah, that's amazing and dope. What can we see in the future for Concreates?
Oh man, like I don't even know how much of this I could even say, but definitely entertainment, right? You can definitely expect television shows, movies, books.
Mm,
Our network is so vast. Like these individuals are sitting in prison with nothing but time on their hands to just create. And
right.
by us existing and being visible in the space or being visible in the media has inspired a whole generation of creatives waiting to hit the ground when they come out. And so, we get script submissions, we get, all sorts of stuff coming from behind bars.
Wow. That is so amazing. I have to like give a slight background. Like when I first heard about Concretes, I did read about you guys in Adweek. So
Sure.
I was really like, again, like for 72 and Sunny to sign you on, that just like put the stamp on it, like you're so official.
Mhm.
So it was refreshing to see like this avenue open, and I was just more intrigued on how you were able to even like flip the script and have them even give you a shot. What was that journey like did you have to do a lot of pitching to convince them like you had these ideas, and were you
No, and I think when I first came home, like I was pitching this to the wrong audience, right? I'm talking to lawyers, I'm pitching to, venture capital folks. You know what I'm saying? I'm pitching this thing to people who don't understand the creative space, right? Like one thing that we have to realize is like the world doesn't necessarily value creativity the way that our industry does, right? So if you're a venture capitalist, like 9 times out of 10, you don't necessarily see how creativity is worth all this money, right? The brands do, right? But and agencies understand it.
mm-hmm.
I think that was kind of my biggest thing. When I first came home and I was running my laps and pitching, I heard probably about 2,300 people tell me no.
Mm. Wow.
And for me, like that one yes from 72 and Sunny is because that was my audience, right? That this is the very people who understand the value of diversity in thought or diversity in creativity or lived experience, right? Like cultural experience. And so once I realized like that my actual audience wasn't the brands, it was the agencies that worked with the brands that we wanted to work with. That's when we were able to kind of pivot and start partnering with agencies and working with different agencies across the industry to even just like build a portfolio, right? To be able to say, you got to think, we did what we did behind bars. There's no deck. There's
Right.
no, there's no, there's
No
nothing. Like I'm just telling y'all, hey, I got a bunch of convicts with me. And we dope.
ideas.
Right.
Hey,
And we dope. You know what I'm saying? And so
right.
so being able to like work with agencies and kind of build that portfolio, so again, like shouts out to 72 and Sunny for bringing us into the fold and introducing us to the process. And I still want to shout out Energy BBDO Chicago, because they actually created this 11-week course for all of our people to not only learn what their job description was, but to be able to shadow their counterpart.
Wow.
So if you're the CCO, like you're able to shadow the CCO, or they had two at the time. So being able to shadow the CCOs over at BBDO, Energy BBDO in Chicago,
Mm.
that's what changed the game for us. It's like now we understand how to communicate these ideas to brands, right?
Right.
Agencies, they get it, right? It's that easy, right? But now that we're getting our own clients, like we're not just necessarily going through the agency background. It's like we're missing some steps.
Right.
So big shout out to Energy BBDO Chicago.
Damn, I never even know you were dealing with BBDO energy, and that's. I'm still floored about the whole situation, but it just seems like this was meant to happen for you, just the way things are connecting. So, what is some of the work that you're most proud of?
Well, again, I mentioned the Grow with Google work that we did, to train, 100,000 individuals that are formerly incarcerated for tech skills. I think some of them, I mean, I'm definitely proud of that, right? Like being able to like hit the mark and do it faster than we kind of set out to do is great. I think a lot of the work that we've done with Google, is some of the proud work. I'm definitely proud of the United Airlines work. Juneteenth, and even before that, the year before that, when Juneteenth became a national holiday, we had teamed up with Meta to kind of like amplify that. So we were able to work with Miss Opal Lee, who's the lady who actually created Juneteenth as a national holiday by walking and getting these signatures and doing all that kind of stuff. So like some of those, I mean, we made history. Like Juneteenth was not a national holiday. And not saying that we did it, we got to work with history.
Right. That's a historic moment. And
Right.
I mean, I remember seeing it and really having no idea that it came from you at the time, So again, you've been, to me, like able to I hate to say the word infiltrate, but I feel that's kind of how it is. Like you've been able to like break through such a barrier that it's hard, especially for Black people, to get into the industry. Sure. There's portfolio schools that they have to go to. Like this is the structure that's been happening, But then even when we do get in there, you still see advertising that is like not properly culturally right, Sure. Because of the fact, like when we do get in, sometimes there are barriers that we're facing still on the inside. Sometimes it's just a check, I've been to lots of different advertising agencies, and the conversation is always like, there's only one or two and things like that. But within those last 15 years, I have to say that's changed. There's a lot of us in here marching around and doing big things. And it's such an incredible lane, but again, it's quite guarded. So for you to crack in, that's an incredible feat and an inspiration to other people like yourself. And, I'm so glad that you got to come on the show, and I could talk to you for hours, just happy you have things, but I'm definitely going to want to have you back on the show because there are some things that are coming up, and I'm going to want to touch base with you and talk about them as they become official. So I'm dying to see what you have going on. Shout out to everybody at CONCREATES for all the work they do. And, hopefully I could get Joe on the show too. I'd love to hear his story. Driving 27 veins is quite interesting. Allegedly.
He's an interesting guy.
I could only imagine, Anything else you would like the people to know before I let you go?
One of the things I think that's important is like a lot of people, when they hear prison or they hear incarceration, like they think about movies, right? They think about the movie and not necessarily the actual reality. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm somebody's father, right? You know what I'm saying? I'm somebody's uncle, you know what I'm saying? Like I'm a brother, like I'm all of these things first, right? Before I'm a felon. You know what I mean? And so, and I want people to just think about that, and not necessarily when it come to me. Like you can think what you want to think about me, but when you meet folks that come from this particular background, you have to remember 1/3 of the United States population has been to jail or prison in some way, right? 1/3, right? That's 1/3. Like over 70 million people in the United States have a criminal record of some sort, right? And so just think about passing it on. Like, how do we pay it forward to the individual who just need a shot, right? Because the difference between, somebody robbing a bank or, coming up with an idea for a campaign or a business is literally just that opportunity, right? Like we're all just one mistake from being in that place that I was in.
Exactly. Like, you have to look at as person as a human, you know.
Yeah.
That's the stigmatism of being in jail is so deep, and once someone gets out, it's so difficult for them to get acclimated again, especially if you've been gone for so long, you know. So it is like really important to just look at that person as if they were related to you. I mean, that's kind of like what I do. You don't know what that person's story is. That's always my biggest thing. Like, okay, they did that, but what happened to them? What happened to them in their foundation to lead them down that path? There's always a story, and everybody has one. Right. So yeah. Vince, I'm so glad you came on the show. So glad we finally got to connect, you know, but I'm going to share links to the work. You guys can support Vincent. You can find Concreates at concreates.com. And they're also on Instagram and LinkedIn. And we can't wait to see what you have going on next. So thanks everybody for coming to the show, and look out for episode 5, y'all.
Hey, I appreciate you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Trey Barker's journey is just like 2.3 million other people who have been incarcerated in the United States. And just like Trey, once they get outside, the chances of being arrested again are unbelievably high. That's why I'm teaming up with the creative genius of CONCREATES. They're formerly incarcerated people who are out in the world doing great things. And we're gonna show you some people just like them and Trey Barker who will beat the odds to become successful entrepreneurs and business owners. Plus, they're giving back to the communities in a positive way.
Whenever you see like a commercial, like who you think doing that?
Like a McDonald's commercial?
Right.
Oh, McDonald's.
No, it's an agency that do that. If we had an agency, what would we call it?
CONCREATES, bro. Convicts to create.
We happen to be locked up with the founder of an underwear company and my co-founder, Joe. You know, he'd seen an opportunity for a football player who had got accused of stealing underwear to pair them up. They did that. It went nuts. That's what sparked the idea of like, we could do this for other brands.
CONCREATES is a non-traditional creative agency powered by the incarcerated and formerly incarcerated. We have people who are thinking outside of the box, who've been in the box for a really long time.
The company was founded on the belief system that creativity without opportunity leads to criminality.
There's 70 million people been incarcerated in this country. 1/3 of our population has been incarcerated. That's the most diverse group of people you could think of.
All right, I got enough years to just go get my degree. And so I set that goal when I went in. I said, I will not leave prison without my business degree. I figured if I could at least be productive, then I could come out a better person. That's what allowed me to look at incarceration a little differently.
And so if we can change how people view themselves having criminal history, that's when you start to see the CONCREATES of the world spring up.
Oh, okay, this is what this is about. Finding my passion, doing my purpose, meeting people, all of the tools that are in my shed, I actually get to utilize.
Meeting Vincent took me back to what I really wanted to do. I wanted to consult for people who had criminal histories.
This idea that he was taken to ad agencies, to investors, traveling the country to try to get off the ground. He's serious about this. I jumped in and we hit the trenches.
I remember like yesterday, it's like March the 1st, Vincent is leaving. He said, listen, when I get out, as soon as you come home, I'm gonna create imagination's playground for you to play with and so the world can know your talent. And he made that promise to me. This is where we are right now.
Second chances are a beautiful thing. To find and learn more about these entrepreneurs and business owners making a positive impact on their communities, please visit tbs.com.
The Last OG. Watch on demand and on the TBS app.